Robert Williams stirred awake to the sound of birds chirping outside the bedroom window. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting golden stripes across the old, creaky floorboards of their modest home in Montourville, Pennsylvania. Tiffany, his wife, was already up, the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee lingering in the air. It was an ordinary morning, or at least, that's how it seemed. Robert rolled out of bed, stretched, and reached for his phone. He checked his messages, scrolling through the usual notifications, ads, promotions, and a reminder about their overdue utility bill. Then, he opened his banking app. What he saw made him freeze. His eyes widened, and he rubbed them, convinced he was still groggy. He blinked hard and looked again. $120,000. His jaw slackened. He let out a slow exhale, his heartbeat picking up pace. Their account had barely been scraping by, sitting at around $1,100 just yesterday. This had to be a glitch, some kind of mistake. "Tiff," he called, his voice louder than he intended. From the kitchen, Tiffany appeared, a mug of coffee in one hand, her blonde hair still messy from sleep. "What? You scared me." Robert turned the phone toward her, his hands shaking slightly. She squinted at the screen, confused. "Wait, what?" "I don't know," Robert said, his voice uneven. "I just checked our account. And look at this." Tiffany set down her coffee on the table and snatched the phone. Her eyes darted between the numbers and the name of their bank. "It's real," she whispered, as if afraid speaking too loudly would make the numbers disappear. They stared at each other for a long moment, the weight of the situation sinking in. A deposit. Not a refund, not a loan. A deposit. The kind of money that could change everything. The unpaid bills, the car repairs they'd been putting off, the small camper they always dreamed of owning, the stress of living paycheck to paycheck. A silent understanding passed between them, an unspoken question hanging in the air. "Do we tell the bank?" Robert exhaled sharply, a nervous chuckle escaping his lips. "Maybe. Maybe it's a miracle," he muttered, half joking. Tiffany bit her lip. "Or maybe it's a mistake," she said. But she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The air in the room had changed. The world outside was still the same. The birds were still chirping. The sun was still shining. But inside the Williams home, something had shifted. Something they could never take back. The numbers didn't change. No matter how many times Robert refreshed the banking app, the balance still stared back at him. $120,000. Tiffany sat across from him at the small wooden dining table, the steam from her coffee swirling in the morning light. Her fingers drummed nervously against the ceramic mug. "We should call the bank," she said finally, her voice quieter than usual. Robert let out a slow breath and leaned back in his chair. "And say what?" "Hey, I think you guys gave us too much money." He shook his head. "They'll just take it back immediately." "Well, yeah, it's not ours," she said, her gaze fixed on the phone in his hand. "But what if—" he hesitated, weighing his words carefully. "What if it's not a mistake?" Tiffany shot him a look. "You seriously think someone just gifted us 120 grand? "I don't know." Robert ran a hand through his unkempt hair. "But think about it. If they haven't caught it yet, maybe it's untraceable." Tiffany didn't respond right away. She was always the cautious one, the planner, the one who triple-checked receipts at the grocery store and made sure their bills were paid on time, when they actually had enough to pay them. She wanted to be responsible, to do the right thing. But that kind of money? It was the kind of money that could erase their problems overnight. Robert saw the conflict in her eyes. He could feel the same battle raging inside himself. Then, as if the universe had a sense of humor, the old refrigerator made a wheezing noise before the motor coughed and died with a pitiful sputter. Tiffany groaned. Perfect. Just perfect. Robert smirked. You know, $120,000 could buy us a new fridge. She shot him a glare, but he could see the doubt creeping in. That night, neither of them slept well. Robert lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thoughts swirling. He imagined what it would be like to wake up and not stress about money, to not have creditors calling, to not feel like they were constantly drowning. And if they just spent some of it? A little? Would the bank even notice? By the time the first light of dawn crept through their bedroom window, a decision had already begun to form in his mind. A dangerous, irreversible decision. The morning came too soon, and with it, a sense of anticipation neither Robert nor Tiffany had felt in years. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down at something both exhilarating and terrifying. Tiffany sat at the kitchen table, absent-mindedly stirring her coffee, her thoughts a storm of worry and temptation. Robert, on the other hand, was scrolling through his phone, his mind made up. "Let's just take out a little," he said casually, as if suggesting they order takeout instead of cooking dinner. Tiffany gave him a sharp look. "Robert, just a little. Enough to catch up on bills, maybe fix the car," he interrupted. "Nothing crazy. We don't have to touch all of it." Tiffany chewed on her lip, a war raging inside her. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Think about it. If the bank hasn't called us by now, they won't notice a couple thousand missing. It's ours until they say otherwise." Tiffany exhaled, her fingers tightening around the handle of her mug. It was a mistake. She knew that, but she also knew the electricity bill was overdue. The fridge was broken. Their old Chevy needed a repair it might not even survive. Maybe just this once. "Fine," she whispered, "but just a little." Robert grinned. By the afternoon, they were standing in front of an ATM, Tiffany shifting nervously from foot to foot, while Robert punched in the numbers. The machine whirred, and seconds later, crisp $100 bills spilled into his hands. $1,000. It felt unreal, the weight of it, the smell of it, like something stolen, yet freely given. Tiffany's stomach twisted as Robert handed her half. "Here, just in case," he said with a wink. She shoved it into her purse, her hands sweating. That evening, for the first time in months, they went out for dinner instead of eating at home. It was nothing extravagant, just a mid-range steakhouse on the outskirts of town. But it felt like something forbidden, something reckless. Tiffany tried to enjoy it, she really did. But with every bite, she felt the weight of the money in her purse, burning like a secret. Robert, however, was already thinking bigger. "I saw a used camper for sale yesterday," he mused, sipping his beer. "Imagine road trips, camping out by the lake, just getting away from all this stress for a while." Tiffany frowned. "Robert, we agreed." "I'm just thinking about it," he said with a grin. "That's all." But Tiffany knew him. She knew that look. And deep down, she feared they had already crossed a line they couldn't step back from. The first 1,000 had been easy. Too easy. By the next morning, Robert was already planning the next move. He sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, scrolling through listings. Campers, ATVs, trucks. The kind of things they had always dreamed of but never could afford. Tiffany, however, wasn't as carefree. She was pacing, chewing her nail, her gut twisting with anxiety. "Robert, we should stop. We should call the bank," she said for what felt like the 100th time. Robert barely looked up. "Call the bank? And say what? Oops, we accidentally spent some money you left in our account? Yeah, that'll go great." Tiffany clenched her fists. "We only took 1,000. They might not have even noticed yet." He sighed, setting his phone down. "Look, Tiff, if they were gonna notice, they already would have. It's been days. If this was really a mistake, someone would have called us by now." She crossed her arms. "What if they do?" Then we'll figure it out, he said, standing up and wrapping his arms around her. But until then, we finally have a chance, babe. A chance to actually live. Don't you want that? Tiffany looked into his eyes, hopeful, excited, desperate. And that's when she realized the truth. Robert wasn't just spending. He was chasing something. Freedom. A way out of the stress, the struggles, the endless cycle of paycheck-to-paycheck survival. And maybe, just maybe, she wanted that too. The next week was a blur. It started with a camper, the 2015 model, used but in great shape. The seller took cash, no questions asked. Then came the four-wheelers. 2 of them, bright, shiny, and ready for adventure. Next, the Chevy Tahoe. A sleek, powerful SUV with room for everything they had never been able to afford before. Each purchase sent an intoxicating rush through Robert's veins. The thrill of handing over cash, the feeling of control, the sense that for once in his life, he wasn't on the losing end of things. Tiffany wasn't as eager, but with each passing day, her resistance faded. She let Robert hand her stacks of cash to pay off bills, bought new clothes, even splurged on an expensive dinner for their closest friends. It felt good. It felt like a dream. But dreams don't last forever. And this one was about to turn into a nightmare. The thrill was intoxicating. The feeling of walking into a dealership and paying in cash. The looks on people's faces when they saw Robert and Tiffany handing over stacks of crisp $100 bills. For the first time in their lives, they weren't just scraping by. They were winning. But deep down, beneath the excitement, Tiffany felt something else. A gnawing unease that wouldn't go away. And then, one morning, it happened. The phone rang. Tiffany was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, when she saw BB&T Bank flashing on the caller ID. Her stomach dropped. Her hands trembled as she picked up the phone. "Hello? Mrs. Williams?" a polite but firm voice asked. "Yes? This is Christine from BB&T. I'm calling about a deposit made to your account earlier this month. It appears that $120,000 was transferred to you in error. We've corrected the mistake and moved the funds back to the originating account." Tiffany's heart stopped. A cold sweat broke out on her skin. "Ma'am?" the woman on the other end said. "Are you there?" Tiffany forced herself to breathe. Yes. The woman continued. "We noticed that your account now has a negative balance of over $107,000. We need to discuss a repayment plan immediately. Can you confirm when you'll be able to return the funds?" Tiffany's fingers tightened around the phone. Return the funds? There were no funds. They were gone. I need to talk to my husband," Tiffany stammered. "Can I call you back?" A pause. Then the woman said, "We need to resolve this quickly, Mrs. Williams. Please call back today." Tiffany mumbled a response and hung up. Her head was spinning. $107,000. Negative balance. They were in debt. The rush, the thrill, the excitement of the past few weeks. All of it came crashing down in an instant. She turned toward the living room, where Robert was casually flipping through TV channels, completely unaware of the storm that had just arrived. Tiffany swallowed hard. They were about to lose everything. And worse, this wasn't just a bank issue anymore. This was a crime. Tiffany stood frozen in the kitchen, the weight of the phone in her hand suddenly unbearable. Robert glanced up from the couch, his face still relaxed, completely unaware that their world had just imploded. She swallowed hard. "Robert," the bank called. His smile faded instantly. "What?" "They know." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "They took the money back. Our account it's overdrawn by $107,000. Robert shot up from the couch like he had been electrocuted. "Wait, what? No, that can't—" He grabbed his phone, tapping furiously to check their balance. Then he saw it. Negative. 6 figures in the red. His face paled. Tiffany's voice wavered. They want the money back. Robert's jaw clenched, his mind racing. Damn it. He paced, running his hands through his hair. Okay. Maybe we can move some things around. Sell some of the stuff. Maybe. Before he could finish, another sound cut through the room, a knock at the door. Tiffany's stomach twisted. Something about it felt wrong. Robert exchanged a look with her before walking cautiously to the door. He pulled it open just a crack. Outside, 2 uniformed officers stood on their front porch. "Mr. Williams?" one of them asked. Robert's grip on the doorknob tightened. "Yeah?" "I'm Officer Daniels with the Montourville Police Department. We need to speak with you and your wife regarding a financial matter involving B&T Bank." Tiffany gasped. Robert swallowed hard. "Look, there's been a mistake." The second officer cut him off. "Sir, we need you both to step outside." Tiffany's knees nearly gave out. She had known this moment would come, but not this fast. Robert turned back to her, his expression a mixture of panic and defeat. They had spent everything. And now the law had come knocking. Robert and Tiffany were both arrested that day, charged with felony theft and receiving stolen property. During questioning, they admitted that they knew the money wasn't theirs, but they spent it anyway, assuming the bank wouldn't notice. The truth was, banks always notice. They were later released on $25,000 bail each, awaiting trial. The flashy purchases? Seized. The 4-wheelers, the camper, the SUV, all repossessed to recover as much of the money as possible. But the damage was done. What started as an unexpected windfall had turned into a financial and legal nightmare. A single mistake, just one moment of temptation, had changed their lives forever. And as they sat in a courtroom months later, listening to the charges against them, they both knew some money just isn't worth spending.